In today's Leeds news, Ramazani impact praised, Doekhi pursuit adds up. Intensity is the key, and Gnonto's Leeds future in doubt. Morning, folks. Welcome to the Leeds View. Tuesday, the 10th of February, with your Leeds United news. Ger here. There's a game tonight, a very important match. Leeds on the road against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. We'll have a watch along over on bigup.com, followed then by the instant match reaction on YouTube. The predictions for the game are also open as well. If you want to get in with a chance to win in our sweepstakes, you can do so. It's free to join. You can go over to Big Up. There's no ads. Get involved if you want to, completely free, and enter the predictions game if you want. The QR code is there for those with a QR code scanner, and those who don't, the link is down below as well. Also, we've got a deal with OK Jerseys as well. If you want to get some World Cup shirts heading into the summer, you can get it with 8% off, and there's a code there that you can use as well. There's a bit of stuff to get stuck in today. We'll start off with largely Ramazani and the impact that he's had recently. Largely Ramazani has had a difficult time on loan at Valencia so far this season. It started off really brightly for him, though. He got an assist in his debut, but then he had to deal, unfortunately, with an injury that kept him out for a while and has probably limited his appearances and his impact since then. And he's only had bench appearances in the last couple of weeks. But in those recent weeks, he has shown a different level off the bench, and he has started to come in for some praise. Valencia boss Carlos Corberán has praised largely Ramazani's impact off the bench in their most recent game against Real Madrid, and says he still trusts the Belgian winger. Corberán was pleased with what he saw in the cameo appearance from Ramazani. He did score off the bench in recent weeks from the penalty spot in the last 10 minutes against Real Madrid. Although it was a cameo, he did have a bit of an impact in the game, and Corberán said this when speaking about Ramazani. I also trust other players like Ramazani and Diego, who could give us energy to go up and down the flanks. I think Ramazani contributed in the minutes that he played, but unfortunately we weren't able to equalise. Ramazani's got 1 goal and 1 assist in 12 league games so far this season. His season's absolutely been stop-start because of the injuries that he picked up. Fingers crossed now. Valencia boss Corberán's under a little bit of pressure as well. They've had massive injuries so far this season to deal with. They're hovering around the wrong end of the table, and I think Corberán would hope that Ramazani will start to show the form that he showed earlier on this season and start to pick up a couple of more goals and dip in with a few assists as well. Let's move on. Probably one of the most concrete links the Leeds had over the winter transfer window was Union Berlin centre-back Denilo Doekhi. And given that Leeds had injuries early in the month with Joe Rodon and now have to deal with an injury to Pascal Struijk, we've had Jakub Bial injured as well, it still feels like a position that Leeds will look for once the summer window reopens, assuming that Leeds do manage to stay in the Premier League. Report today suggests that Doekhi does fit the model that Leeds United used during last summer, and given the success that Leeds have had with Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free transfer, if Leeds can box clever during the summer window, they might be able to maximise the spending on other player arrivals coming into the club as they look to strengthen the side for next season. Last summer, the model was very straightforward. Sign players between the ages of 25 and 28, over 6 foot in height mostly, and in the final 6 months of their contracts for value. Doekhi is 27 years of age, he's 6'5" in height, and will be a free transfer for Leeds in the summer should they be able to move and get him. The only bit that's off with this is he is a right-footed centre back. Leeds have plenty of them right now, and with Pascal Struijk out injured, he's the only left-footed centre back that Leeds United have right now. Now, Jakub Bial can comfortably play in that position, so maybe it's not the end of the world, but he is a good player, will be an interesting one, and it would give more competition in that centre-back area. Daniel Farke has preferred James Justin at times over Sebastian Bornau. Might want a more attacking one, but he is a goal-scoring centre-back, Denilo Doekhi, and very much a threat from set pieces. So if Leeds can be smart this summer, get a couple of transfers in of a decent level on a free transfer, likes of Doekhi, likes maybe even a Harry Wilson, then it will give Leeds more money to spend on other targets and maybe start to bring in some difference makers that they wanted to bring in during last summer's window. They'll have a little bit more wiggle room this summer if they do stay in the Premier League with the new SCR model coming in, and there's no guarantee that Doekhi or Harry Wilson are the players that come to Leeds, but that kind of a model would be a smart bit of business, again, seeing how well even Lucas Meche, I know he's had his injury issues this season, but he still chipped in with some goals. Doesn't cost you a huge amount of money on a short-term deal. Be interesting to keep an eye on what happens, but he does tick that box what they went for last year. Will they go for the Big Bastards FC again this summer? We'll have to wait and see. Let's move on. Talk about tonight's game, and tonight's game against Chelsea won't be a straightforward task. It's a very different Chelsea, it's a very different setup, and it's a very different manager than we faced earlier on this season. But there is one area that Leeds United can still capitalise on, and because Chelsea some potential issues, and that's physicality and intensity. Leeds' intensity in our first meeting this season was fantastic. Leeds didn't let Chelsea breathe. We didn't give them any space to play in, and we were on top of them from the first minute. And Chelsea's new boss, Liam Senior, has called this out in his press conference yesterday as an area that Chelsea need to sort out if they're to get a result against Leeds tonight. Senior says his players must stand up to the intense challenge that Leeds United will bring tonight when they arrive at Stamford Bridge. And speaking in his pre-match press conference, Senior said the following: "They were magnificent in that game, very forward-thinking and direct. And when I say direct, I mean it in a really positive way. They used the strengths of their team. They used Dominic Calvert-Lewin. His movement in the box is outstanding. And they get corners in the box and counter-press really well. We have to stand up to that and overcome the intensity that they will bring, which is key to the game." I've said it all season that I believe that this Leeds United side's best form of defence is attack. We're far better side on the front foot. I have issues when we sit back on the 18-yard line and make it a bit more nervy. But like the first game, Leeds need to be tight to Chelsea when they have possession of the ball. We need to smother them when we can. And the work rate's going to be huge coming into this game. They will make the pitch much bigger than the first game. Our senior plays very wide and very high. So there will be space to play in when Leeds do manage to get the ball, and how they use the half spaces will be interesting. I'd love to see a DCL and Lucas Mecha front two tonight, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Daniel Farke goes with a pretty similar lineup than he went out against Nottingham Forest because of those spaces that will be on the pitch. It'll be likely an unchanged side outside of Pascal Stroud, but Yacobiel, as we've said, will probably come in for him in that position. But it will be an interesting one to keep an eye on, but an aggressive, intense approach is absolutely needed for Leeds United. And we didn't make it comfortable for them in Ellen Road. Let's not make it comfortable for them in Stamford Bridge. But as I say, it is a different Chelsea. They're on a hell of a run right now. They're winning games for fun. But anything tonight will be a positive result for Leeds. If we can get a point, that would be great. 3 points will be fantastic. And as I say, we have got a watch along over on bigup.com and an instant match reaction straight after the game. Regardless of the result, we'll still talk about the game afterwards as well. Let's move into our final story of the day. This one relates to Willy Gnonto, and there's growing belief that Wilfred Gnonto's time at Leeds United might come to an end this summer, with the Italian's minutes being extremely limited over the course of the Premier League season so far. Gnonto has only played 349 minutes for Leeds in the Premier League this season. He'll likely start in the FA Cup at the weekend against Birmingham, but he's not likely to feature in the starting position, at least for Leeds in the Premier League. Daniel Farke's change of system has really curtailed the amount of opportunities that Gnonto has gotten this season, moving away from orthodox wingers and into a 2 behind a 1 or even a front 3 at times. And Farke has opted for Noah Okafor, Brendan Aronson, Lucas Nemecha and Dan James even more recently in those 2 behind the 1. To his credit though, it's got to be said, Willy Gnonto, when he has played this season, has worked hard, has shown an impact when he's come onto games, and has shown a really, really good attitude when he has played. But he does feel like an unlikely starter for Leeds. And even off the bench, I did think he could have made an impact against Nottingham Forest, but wasn't chosen in that game. And his future at the club may lie elsewhere come the summer. Now, the other flip side to this is probably one that's worth talking about. That's the age of the player. Willy Gnonto is still only 22 years of age, so very young player, very relative terms. His contract at the club runs until 2028, so he's got lots of time. There's lots of 22-year-olds that are in the Premier League squads that are not playing football. There's the odd exception of ones that are, but quite a lot of them are probably playing exactly the amount of minutes that Willy Gnonto has played this season. But given his impact at Leeds when he burst onto the scene when we signed him in our first Premier League campaign at a very young age, maybe sitting on the bench is not something that Willy Gnonto wants to do. There are continuous reports in Italy of interest in Gnonto. The other option is maybe a short-term move for him as well. As we say, his contract runs until 2028. Maybe Leeds look at potentially loaning him out in the summer, let him go, play some minutes, get some form and show the ability that he has elsewhere during that period of time. Again, because he's 22, you've got that space and time to do it. But it will all depend, I suppose, on what Leeds United decide to do in the summer. Again, assuming Leeds United retain their position in the Premier League for next season, they're expected to bring in attack-minded players, and that might make it even more difficult. Leeds will need to upgrade positions. Gnonto does carry quite a strong PSR or SCR next season percentage, but you'd much rather see a talented player, and there is a talented player in Gnonto. He's just struggling for form right now. I'm not sure what the issue is there. Maybe it's just a case of not fitting the system, similar to Joe Pirou. Just horses for courses, and he doesn't exactly fit in what Daniel Farke is trying to do right now. But he has been good when he has played, and again, he had issues before, but his attitude this season seems to have been very, very good when he has been around the place. And when he has played, he's worked hard. He hasn't sulked. He's playing with a smile on his face when he is playing. not causing any issues. But I would like to see him get more time. I really did think against Nottingham Forest at one point, but maybe 25 minutes to go, that bringing on Gnonto and Dan James to play in behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin would have really stretched Nottingham Forest. Maybe we see that a bit more towards the end of the season. Still plenty of time this year, but it is looking increasingly like that certain players in the Leeds United squad are not in the manager's first team thoughts and may move on once the summer transfer window opens. And Leeds will have to do one thing that they've really struggled to do. They brought in some good players last summer that have been very good for us this season, but they will have to get better at moving players on that aren't part of the manager's plans. Whoever that manager is come the summer, whether it's Daniel Farke or anybody else, they'll have to make sure to get the players out the door as well as in, and unfortunately sentimentality at times has to be parked. But I have liked what I've seen from Willie Gnonto this season. Would love to see him far more involved, but we're not the manager, we don't pick the team, but it is what it is. Folks, that'll be it from me this morning. Check out last night's podcast, myself, Paul and Jerry having a little look at what's left to do and can we hold our nerve between now and the end of the season and stay in the Premier League. And then we will have, as I say, watch along over on bigup.com. It's free to join, no ads. You can join us over there later on for the watch along, or you can come back to YouTube later on and watch us on the instant match reaction. And again, available on all the audio platforms as well. Have a great rest of your day. Fingers crossed for 3 points tonight. I'll see you later. Bye.